October is here, and you know what that means. It is time for another Slay the Spire 2 update. Just today, Megacrit dropped the October 2024 newsletter, so stay tuned and we're going to dive right into it. First up, we have a brief update on core content going into the game, content like Redacted and Redacted. Interestingly enough, they've also implemented in-game patch notes, so we'll be able to visit the archive of changes one day. Not today, unfortunately. And then we have a bit of information here on how their aesthetics are driving their game design. In last month's newsletter, they discussed why they're working on a sequel to Slay the Spire 2 instead of just adding on more content to the game we already know and love. So now they're going to look at the problems that were part of the visual style. First and most important thing, that Casey is not what he would consider good at art. Being bad at art myself, I can agree with this part. Being bad at art doesn't necessarily mean that you're bad at drawing or having poor taste. It's that I haven't seen enough time in my life to cleanly demonstrate what I'm imagining onto paper. It is a frustrating experience trying to capture a quote, damned knight powered by demonic energy as a sprite in a video game. In the end, he gave up on the Ironclad. That's correct, the Ironclad we see today in Slay the Spire is a character that the original developer gave up on. Here we have some very early drawings of the Ironclad. I especially like the stick figure here. Goes on to say, those of us that have a keen eye probably realize that the Ironclad has the same pose as Hakumen from the BlazBlue series, pictured here. He found the character to be really cool, and on top of that, the faceless nature of the character and his posture was really menacing. So he sketched out a character that felt like it would fit in the world of Slay the Spire in the same pose. He goes on to say it was supposed to be a "this is the feeling I want," hopefully an artist redraws this later. But it ended up being the final sprite, so it felt a little unoriginal due to the pose. After he had a character with the right feel, now all he had to do was animate it. Whole lot of work to animate even a 2D sprite. This was daunting, as there are a lot of other work to do, like programming the game. He was already frustrated with how much time was spent on the Ironclad, so he decided he can just elbow strike the enemy, as we see here. Moving on, the silence concept came much quicker. It still took a long time to draw the sprites that exist for her, and animating what I drew was also out of the question for his technical abilities. A scary skeleton donning assassin. If you can see anything but her cape, it's probably because you've been assassinated. Very cool concept, great job. Now give her a wobbly knife because wobbly knives are scary. There were a lot of misunderstandings on what a character was doing, how they were standing, and how they were holding something, and whether they were supposed to look happy or angry. This in turn made him incorporate less narrative mechanics. A lot of intrigue and power struggles tend to occur between humanoid races for a reason. We're able to relate more to the things that are human than to the foreign or abstract. We can see the remnants of this from the existence of other humanoid adventurers, slavers, thieves, and so forth. As the game's fun was found in the deck building and core game loop, this felt like an opportunity to reduce the game's scope and to rescind a lot of the narrative and story elements which were loosely planned. Today he goes on to ask himself, but what if those limitations were gone? This all goes on to the big reveal that Marlo Dobbs, the artist responsible for Dicey Dungeons, has actually been a part of Megacrit for 3 years now. Casey goes on to say that a lot of his time post-release during the pandemic was spent on improving his artistic abilities. He also spent time learning bass and making various game prototypes in Unity. He also knew there would be too much work to be the primary artist on all things visual if they were to do a sequel in Slay the Spire. He wanted a quote, art person who could draw small things that were clear and concise while also inviting playfulness, creativity, and expressiveness. They've been working together for the majority of the project, and they continue to hone the visual identity of Slay the Spire 2 based on what Casey thinks, what Marlo thinks, what the rest of the team thinks, and what their internal playtesters think. Man, I'd love to be one of those guys. Their style and philosophy is merging together, and I'm always pushing for user interface snappiness and speed while ensuring that the game's vibes don't stray from the original. They also hired a full-time animator, and they brought back the original Spire's card and event illustrator to be on the team. Working together for a long time allows them to mind meld and think of the harmony you'll see in the game as a sight to behold. Here we have some changes that they've implemented so far. Just a reminder, these are high-level changes, and these are what Casey would say if he was forced to make a bulleted list. They're going for playful. There are still some dark themes, but the tone is more playful in this game, and the visual language and the world, not just the Spire. They're going for crisp. Creatures, items, cards, and backgrounds are all a little more crisp, and the style is less painterly from the original. They're going for lively. Considerably more animations and transitions make the game feel more alive. They're going for cinematic effects, more whole screen art stuff. Compared to before, this makes the game feel more epic rather than intimate. Interesting. Colorfuller. Everything is more colorful. This improves the legibility of various screens as well. We're going to move on and get some words from the new art director. Working on developing the visual style for Slay the Spire 2 has been really interesting and a unique challenge that I'm unsure I'll ever get to experience again as a game dev. Coming into work on a sequel of a very beloved game has a whole new set of rules from working on a new concept or property. While we want to update the visuals and make it feel new and fresh, we also want to ride that line of it being recognizable as the Slay the Spire world. More from Marlo. Myself and the art team have done what I can only describe as visually dissecting what parts of the vibe of Slay the Spire 1, what motifs, repeating visuals, creatures, race, architecture, etc. all add up to the unique, kind of creepy, but kind of fun energy of the game. We're all big fans of the first installment, and I at least have spent an embarrassing amount of time playing it. Me too. Go ahead, comment down below along with your caw how many hours you've got in this game. When I'm approaching it as a fan, and also someone in charge of steering the visuals of the sequel, you start to pick up on things like, yeah, there's not a lot of uncovered faces in Slay the Spire. This character we're working on wouldn't fit because you see too much of their face. Or, this is a cool monster, but is it weird enough? In the end, their end goal is to make it feel bigger than the first game with new sets, new characters and enemies, more full screen art, way more animations, and a lot of visual effects. Insert sparkles and fire and sparks here. Of course it'll look different and new, but I think it's going to be a place that the old and new Slay the Spires will feel comfortable and familiar in. And in the spirit of Halloween season coming up, here's a spooky Slay the Spire 2 sneak peek. We've got a little ghost with a sword stuck in the ground here, but he's also kind of a skeleton because he's got bones over here. Very cool. For any of you who are translating these announcements, Slay the Spire translations in the past, and or if you're interested in translating them, please contact the devs at megacrit.com, or you can DM Casey on Discord. So for those of you who are bilingual, trilingual, here's your opportunity to get in on the game. Finally, there's an opportunity for all of you artists out there. Last year, they held their first annual Mega Crit or Treat event where the community was encouraged to share any Halloween-themed Slay the Spire content. Whether that's drawn, written, modded, cosplayed, cooked, carved, crocheted, interpretively danced, or whatever. This year, they're doing it all again, this time with a new prize for participants. You have until Sunday, November 3rd to post your beautiful and or terrifying creations on the Slay the Spire Discord server, and they will bestow upon you a treat, the limited time creepy cultist role. If you want to join in on the frightening activities but don't know where to begin, check out the official Slay the Spire pumpkin carving stencils made by our art director and honorary mayor of Halloween, Marlo. There's a link here for that. I'll also throw that in the description if any of you want it. We've got some fan art down here at the bottom that looks like it has just about everyone in the game. This is actually really cool. This would be a great phone wallpaper. And then we've got a very different style painting of the Ironclad. And then there's a Slay the Spire song down here at the bottom. That's going to wrap everything up. Be sure to like and subscribe down at the bottom if you want to see more Slay the Spire news, and I'll see you soon.